Yeah, I can't find it. No, there we go.
We're live.
Hey,
Live.
back again.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but Steve replied to it. He's like, "Go to bed." It was like, got my stream in the morning. Got to make sure to be alive. That's the best I could offer.
There you go. There you go.
I brought my moral support here. George, come here. Come here. Come here.
Hey.
Got my Gucci's. So the sad news is I'm not going to hear when my new keyboard arrives. I got a new keyboard coming today. So with my security system in the basement here, in the lab, I'm not gonna hear it. There's Georgie. She's funny. She's scared to come down, so I had to let her from the outside. She doesn't like the spiral stairs.
Oh,
cool. All right. So today we are going to build a custom entity from mostly scratch. Why do I say mostly? Because we have a template that we created that drops kind of the basic stuff in place to save you from basically having to type every single piece of code manually. We'll save you a little bit of that effort, but we will have to be doing some code. So let me post a download link in the comments. The Dropbox link.
cool.
So we will call that this is the template add-on. Okay. First comment every day. Rats, what's up? Yeah, sort of. I might have beat you to it. This is Lee. I got my audio coming back to me on your side. You probably know that, but just letting you know. Miss Lee, teacher, welcome. Oh, this is great. Okay, everybody loading in. The class is loading in. Okay, so get that add-on, that template folder downloaded, and I will share the screen. Share. Speaking of share, if you didn't watch my stream yesterday, you didn't get to hear my share impersonation.
Oh, I missed it.
Just saying. Just saying.
You're not trying to sell our hair products, are you?
Yeah. Well, why? Why do you say that?
I'm sorry. That's weird. Is that awkward? My bad.
Yeah. You're tripping over your words. What's the deal?
I've got no room to talk. I wear a hat. So you can't see the shine on my head. So.
I know. I still trying to figure that out. What's the perception I want to create? But this is the real deal. Half the trouble is picking out a good T-shirt as well. So
it's a rough day.
Yeah, I'm like, whew. All right, so I've got my screen up here. Okay, all right, cool. We're gonna get rolling. Anyone that joins can follow along. So you're going to get this download that I sent to you. You'll download it when you download it. So I'll copy this one and paste it, and I'll call it my downloaded, so that you don't have to rename it like this. I'm just doing this so I don't change the original one that you're downloading. That's the one you're downloading. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click. How's your day been? Yeah, we are awesome. Joss Coder. Idea. Mauricio.
Morning, buddy.
What's up, dude? Okay. What am I doing? Oh, see, I can't walk and chew gum. I'm going to right click on that folder. So once you actually, I should have zipped it up, but it's the whole folder. Download that. Yes, we're using Visual Studio Code. You can get the download. Gatlin, can you get the Visual Studio Code download link and chuck it in? Actually,
on it.
If you chat it to me, I can put it through all three of them. But all right, cool. So once you get this all extracted, what I'm going to do is right click it and say open with code, Visual Studio Code. Right. The cool thing there is that I've got the entire folder structure here in this view. And what was the was it? Yeah. I'm trying to remember my shortcut key, my genius shortcut key that I came up with.
They're supposed to save you time. What are you doing?
Ah, there you go. Yeah,
that one. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, Control. Do I have to do that to turn it off? Okay, cool. All right. So I got this little zooming dealio, so that could hopefully make things a little bit easier for you guys. So this is what we have going on here. We have the folder tree that we could navigate, which is super helpful. So we'll be able to look at all the files that we need to manipulate. So these are the ones that I'm kind of giving you for free, so we can change things up. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, customize this to make it unique for each individual. And we'll zip it up and make it installable into Minecraft. We'll put it in Minecraft and put the development, put them into the development packs so that we can go ahead and start customizing them in the world. And here is the Visual Studio Code. Thank you.
Yeah.
VS Code, download. Go.
Nice.
Blast out to all channels.
Thank you, sir.
Oh yeah, and you put it there as well. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so let's get started with the only essential thing we need to do here is we need to make this unique to us. And you're going to have to follow along this process. And if you look at some of the earlier videos, you see how we installed the extension that grabs the UUID. We're going to need unique UUIDs, which is a little redundant and repetitive because the second U is the word unique. What's the first word? Okay, so what I do to be nice and zippy is I can highlight this area that says needs new UUID. I do Control-Shift-P, brings up my command palette, and I have this recently used, generate UUID, and that's what a UUID looks like. So I am going to give you another tip. There is a UUID generator, uuidgenerator.net. I'll post that in the chat. So if you don't have the plugin, you want to get a UUID, you can go to this website, and if you refresh the page, it just loads up another UUID. See that? We just wasted that completely good UUID by letting it go. Now, I don't want you to copy mine, and I don't want you to copy anybody else's. You go generate your own. This is supposed to be unique to you, so don't grab anyone else's UUID. That will cause problems. I think I copied that one. Let's see. Yeah, I copied that one and pasted into that string. So that's the way you can do that. I'm going to save that manifest. I think you would want to you could change the description, put your name in here. And if you have a certain pack that you want to build, you could put the name of the pack there. So even though these are ordered improperly, like this is the name, and then the description shows up below it actually in the game, but they're reversed in the default pack. I don't know why. Probably alphabetical. Something like that. Okay. So I'm using my shortcut. Okay, so I've got the UUIDs created. So we're going to save that. And now I can go back to my file explorer and we're going to package these up. So in here, not the behavior packs folder and not the BP folder, which is the add-on itself, but we're going to go into this folder here, and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to shift click to select everything. Okay, then I'm going to right click and send to compressed zipped folder, and I'm going to call it template BP, and get rid of the extension and call it MC pack. Okay. And then when I hit enter, it's going to be like, whoa, are you sure you want to change the file extension? No crazy things happen when you do that. Yes, I do. Okay. And so now our template behavior pack is created. I'm going to move that up to this folder. Go here, go into resource packs, RP, same deal. I'm going to select the first folder, hold shift, click the bottom one, right click, send to compressed zipped folder. And this is template RP MC pack. Yes, indeedly. We go back here. Now we have our two packs. Now here's another cool trick. If you don't know, you can install these together by clicking on both packs, right clicking. We have inception going on here, the box inside of a box. So we can compress, and we can call this template add-on dot MC pack. Oh, sorry, MC add-on.
Mm-hmm.
How do you like that?
You're getting worried you were going to tell him wrong information.
I sensed you were on me. That's why I quick changed it. I'm like, I will not let him have that victory. Not that easily. He needs to save me later when I'm really stuck. Okay, so we're gonna run this by double clicking it to get it installed. So I'm gonna double click, boopity boop. Oh, ding dang, dingity dang dang.
Ooh, education.
Education is good. So if that happens to you, if you're one of those people fortunate enough to have multiple versions of Minecraft, what you could do is you could right click on it and then you could say open with, and then you could select the proper thing. So in this case, this flat 2D grass icon is Bedrock Edition, whereas Education Edition is like a bookshelf. So I'm going to like that. Okay. Successfully imported template behaviors, successfully imported template resources. That's good news. Successful is nice. So if you did not have success, chances are you did something wrong, most likely. The most common thing is people, they don't honor the punctuation. So like if you ended up, oh shoot, see, that's a problem right there. But if you went in here and selected a little too far, or your cursor wrapped to like the next screen, the next line, you would lose these things. And so if I were to generate a new UID now, it kind of screwed things up. Okay, so Control Z is your friend when you make mistakes. We didn't have Control Z when I was a kid. And we broke that lamp when my parents were at the supermarket, and we had to figure out how to undo the idea of playing football in the living room.
You were lucky you were allowed in the living room. We just got kicked out. We had to go outside.
Yeah, we used to play knee football. So as soon as our parents left, we move all the furniture. Me and my brothers would play knee football, and then when we saw the headlights drive in, we would put all the furniture back and sit down and act like everything's chill. And they'd be like, "What were you guys doing?" We're like, "Nothing." And then later they told us, like, we come home, you're sweating, you're beet red, and you say you're doing nothing. Oops, you miss those details when you're a kid. We thought we had them. It's like that video of the kid with chocolate all over his face. Like, why didn't eat it? All right, so we're going to create a new world. I am going to create a new world, and we're going to call this my template world, and I'm going to make it creative. I'm going to walk you through kind of like the default settings that I use for worlds when I'm kind of building stuff and just want to have access to everything I'm doing. So first of all, I'll do like a flat world, so I don't have to worry about finding a good place. And a creative, and then I like to turn coordinates on because that's important if you start getting into command blocks and things like that. I'll sometimes turn like fire spreading if I'm working on a map and I don't want to accidentally destroy something. I'll turn some of these things off. But I like to keep cheats on. I like to make it always day. I like to keep inventory. I like to turn off mob spawning so that we don't have creatures everywhere without our decision. I like to turn weather cycle off. If you turn off like entities dropping loot, if you turn that off, then loot tables aren't going to process, and you're going to be like, why is my loot table not working? And it's because I'm not speaking from personal experience. Tile drops is the same thing. That's the loot tables for blocks. So we have all that. One more thing I want to change is the difficulty. Difficulty instead of normal. We don't want to make it peaceful. We turned off mob spawning because if you don't turn off mob spawning, you get slimes everywhere. But we don't want to make it peaceful because then any of our hostile mobs will be denied from entering the world. And then we won't be able to pick on the creeper or anything like that. So I'll leave it normal. I think we're good to go. So before we create the world, we can go to resource packs, my packs, template resources, the ones that we just added, activate, and behavior packs, template behavior packs, activate, and then create. I'm a little nervous. Okay, so let's see. Okay, it's there. So we could see we're in our world. So I'm going to type a command / summon and then start. If I ever like starter, what happens? Oh, something exists. Okay, we have a vehicle. We have a starter vehicle. Polizia. This is the
invincible. You got so much life.
Yeah. Oh. That's funny. That if you've ever seen this problem, I'll help you fix that. That's a movement. It's a movement issue. You know, we have as you get older. I'm not gonna say it. Okay, so we don't want movement issues to be our trending emoji. Okay, so we're pretty good here. You should be at a point where you've got at least this entity coming to life in your world if you've done everything correctly. Okay, so now checkpoint. If you don't have this, double check your work against the video, and if you have questions, you could post them in the chat or in the video comments wherever you're watching it. We'll try to answer, but we don't like to answer if you don't like to check your own work. We can't do everything for you, but meet us halfway. We'll help you out. So I'm going to save and quit. What do you tell your students, Ian Gatlin? Before they come to you with a question, before they come to you with like a question that shows that they've done absolutely no effort trying to solve it themselves.
But I rarely get students that don't have any effort, at least in the classroom. This new online stuff is a little bit different. The biggest question that I ask my students is, what is it that you're trying to get the game to do? Or what is it that you're trying to get the program to do? Or what is it that you're trying to do? because often they come to me with their hands waving and I'm doing this, I'm trying one of these things. I'm like, it doesn't help me at all. Like, I don't know what you're doing. What is it that you're trying to get it to do? Oh, I was trying to get it to do this. There we go.
Right. And that's good. That's good. That's like the whole rubber duck debugging thing. You know, like if you just explain to somebody what you're trying to do before you're done explaining it, you already figured out what you did wrong because you had to explain it. It forces you to think through it a little clearly in order to get somebody to understand it. So if you don't have any friends like me, then you just talk to something on your desk, explain to it what you're doing and where you're stuck. And if it helps you, let us know. I want to know what that thing is. But yeah. So the next thing we're going to do is now we have to take the pack, this pack, and we want to start working on it, developing with it. So I showed you how to create the com.mojang folder in your quick access. So I click on that. Right, it should be in your quick access, and then I've got Minecraft worlds. Click on that, and then you can see I'm sorting by date modified. So this most recent one here is the world that we just created. And if we look at behavior packs, you could see template behavior is already in here. Okay, so what I want to do is copy template behavior. So I click on the folder, Control C, and then I go up to development behavior packs. Click on that and paste. That's my behavior pack. Now we're going to do the same thing in that latest world file with the resource pack. Template resource packs. Control C. And I can also click on here, go to development resource packs, and paste it in there. So what this does is now that you could see the world has the pack that we created. So we created the pack on our local drive, zipped it up, installed it into Minecraft, and then it just sits in Minecraft, not connected to anything. And then when we connected it to our world, it put a copy of the pack inside of the world at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. And if we want to make changes to that, we could go straight into the world and make the changes. But then if we accidentally delete that world, all of our changes are gone. And so if you take those packs and put them in development, in the developments folder, what will happen is that world will see like, oh, I want to load this template behavior. And it uses a UUID to match against the one that's in the developments folder. It's like, oh, there's a development one here. That takes top priority. So it's going to load everything in the developments folder, the development behavior pack and development resource pack first. And so now we've created this override. And no matter how many worlds we create that use that original behavior pack, it's going to resort back to the development one to get the newest, latest, and greatest. So I guess our long-term process is going to be, we're going to take the development resource pack and behavior pack when we're done, and we're gonna package that up as kind of like our official final, and that's when we'll be backing up to save and stuff like that, so we don't lose our changes. Sounds good? All right. So what we are going to do now that we have that is get out of this awesome Zoom here, and I'm going to go to the com.mojang folder. I'm going to close these template folders. I think we're done with that for now. And in the com.mojang, I have these two folders. So I actually going to right click over here and say open with code and open the whole shebang. There we have it. Okay. So we're going to walk through. Now we just have to make sure we're kind of going to the right places. So we have the development behavior packs folder. So let me step you through what you have at your fingertips here. You have this starter.json. If you want to make this, let's call this. I'll call this dude. Is that an okay word?
for me.
Okay. All right. So we have Cleverlike Dude, and then one of the things you could customize is the family that it belongs to. So I think you could say like mob, like that. The family you can customize and kind of group your entities together. So if they're all a certain type of entity, you can put them in a similar family. And then we have our starter loot table defined as the loot tables folder, and then starter.json. Oh, see that? That's cool. That's the live one.
Yeah, the live one moves around on you.
But this one is actually
It's static until you get to the edge.
pretty cool. Yeah, that's nicer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll be doing that the starter JSON. We could look at that folder or that file and see here we have a loot table. And this is in our previous videos, we went through hacking all of these things so you can get a familiarity for what they do and how to customize them. And so you can see we're going to get an iron helmet because I have a minimum and a maximum of 1. So we're definitely going to get one, or an iron chest plate, or iron leggings, or iron boots. So we can test that out when we destroy the entity to see if we get something from the loot table. So the vehicle just taking off. We're going to go to our tools, bedrock.dev. I'm going to throw that in the chat. If you didn't bookmark that already, you should. It's a great tool made by people in the community, which is the awesome thing about this community is people, like myself, kind of want to help people out and share. So they invest their own time in making things available to other people. So this is like all of the documentation for add-ons kind of put into a really nice interface. And there's also a wiki that has a lot of tutorials that are really helpful that you can dig into. So if I go into my entities, and I like to go to the components, I could also do a search if you know what you're looking for. But I would say just in your spare time, this is the kind of person I am. In your spare time, read through the components. Get a feeling for what these things can do. Does that sound lame?
This is the kind of rabbit hole I always have diving down to. You and me are very much alike.
I'm like, ooh, every little paragraph. Oh, has trade supply, and then oh, in the nether, I can do something like this. Starts to give you all kinds of ideas, just like
it really does. One of the things that I really enjoy about these is once you kind of dive into it and be like, okay, well, I want my entity to do whatever it is. Like I want it to be able to breathe underwater. You're like, okay, cool. Well, once you get it underwater, you're like, well, now it's underwater. Why is it dying instantly? Like what's keeping it from staying alive, right? And then you start to dig further and answer your own questions. And this is why I ask my students, like, what is it that you're trying to get it to do? Because if you can tell me what it is that you're trying to do, I might know another little trick that'll help out. But that little trick that I might know will kind of spark the next idea for what it is that you want your piece to do. Like once it's underwater, I want it to be able to breathe, but I also want it to be able to move twice as fast because I've given it flippers. And it just starts to, like I said, it's a rabbit hole. You just spiral down these things.
Yeah, totally. And that's for me, it's inspiration. Like, ooh, you want to look for ideas on what's possible. Once you read through these things and find things that are curious and interesting to you, then you might come up with a way to try to use them. And then you have a foundation for a goal that you want to build towards, and at least some of the stepping stones you might need to get there. So I'm going to show you a trick here on what, if I've got this kind of like poorly demonstrated or documented thing, or at least there's no sample code in this one. And oh yeah, you know what? They did add. Where is that? I just saw this the other day. They have all of the uses inside the packs. Let's see here, packs behaviors. Is that just the downloads? Yeah, that's just the downloads. If somebody knows, if somebody's watching and they know kind of where they have the uses, that would be cool. Am I missing anything? No, but since we have already the template packs, I'll show you what I do locally, which I kind of like. For now is I'll go back into the let me find that folder. Okay. Oh yeah. So it's another thing I showed you in an earlier video is that you can have the vanilla packs uncompressed and ready to go in your quick access bar. So I can right click this and then say open with code. It should open a new code window. The cool thing is that all of the vanilla pack is now searchable. So if I go to edit, find in files, and I go navigation.generic, find that like the dolphin has navigation generic, the fish has it. These are interesting because these are swimming things that use generic, because generic allows you to do on land and in water. So the other thing we could do is navigation dot walk, bats, hover is bees, float is a bat, right? So you get the idea that if you want to understand the different types of navigation, you could look at how they're implemented in entities that you're familiar with, the vanilla entities. So this is a great way to kind of cross-reference, not only get the actual sample code, but also get the find the right code to use. So looks like navigation walk is pretty famous. Let's just copy that. I Control C on that one. There we go. And I'm going to put that into the component section. So if you remember, I didn't create in this template, we didn't create component groups and events. So we only have components here. It probably would have been a nice thing to add, but we can address that later. I'm going to, after a comma, I'm going to Control V to paste it. Navigation walk is amphibious, can path over water. So this is if it has AI. And then say, is there a movement here? A Minecraft movement. This is movement dot. This is the one. This is the even more important one. Movement basic. Don't you worry, people. We got this. So I went and found movement basic. And if we can go back to our code, I'm kind of stepping through the process of connecting all the dots, connecting all the doots. Where is this? We go to entities, and then I could try movement.basic. There we go. Not a whole lot of documentation, but this component accents the movement of an entity. Thanks for all the details. So this is where searching your packs comes in handy. Okay, so we kind of put that in there, and we are going to make sure to save our work. Saving that one. And I think the navigation it's going to be more of an AI thing. So let's I guess let's leave it. It might come in handy. So the movement one is more important for that hopping off the vehicle problem. So let's go back in to the world, my template world. And If it acts funny on the current one, summon, start row. What did I do? Save and quit. Did we create a problem? Movement basic. Oh, dude. Haha. I called it dude. I'm going to leave this starter for now. I'm going to go back and change that to starter. Let's go back in here. Maybe perhaps getting a little sidetracked. I don't know. Let's see. Summon starter vehicle. There we go. Oh, well, hello. And now if we drive, when we hop off, it stays there. And it was because that movement attribute. So it kind of lost all sense of gravity or lost all sense of friction. How do we like that? Is that good?
It works.
All right. So let's get back to it. All right. So we're going to try not to get distracted here. We're going to change this back to dude. Save it. We have our, we can call this dude.json. Dude.json. Save the file. And now we have to, let's start renaming things. So we're going to go through this process of kind of branching off this entity to have its own name here. And we're going to do it manually. So the entity is called dude in the template behavior pack. And do that. And then we have our loot tables and then our entities folder. Since the loot tables folder only has this folder, it shows them kind of on the same line together in Visual Studio Code. So if I click on this file, I'll hit F2 so I can rename it to dude.json. Okay. Now, I make sure that my loot table path is dude.json, and it is. There you go. So I think we're good with the resource pack, with the behavior pack, but now we have to go to the resource pack because these two are tied together. When you're creating a custom entity, you have to define everything from scratch, essentially. So we're going to go through and make sure that everything has its own unique name. So our goal is to get a dude entity by the time we're done. So I'm going to hit F2 to rename it. We'll call this dude.json. Now, the interesting thing here is like this file name is somewhat irrelevant because when it opens this file, it's reading the contents and it's using the identifier really as the most important piece. So you can name this file really whatever you want. It's just nice to name it something that makes sense when you're reading it.
Mm-hmm. And that way you don't have to open the file to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And so to that extent, you could actually give it a more meaningful name to you than the entity name if you needed to. Mm-hmm. So the identifier is super important. This is what's connecting the behavior pack behaviors of the entity and the resource. So we might say like the resource is the client side and the behavior pack is the server side in the development of the game world. So we need to provide both of those and they need to be connected for the entity that we're defining. So that's the deal here. I have a render controller that's just named generic. So it's not switching textures. It's not doing anything fancy. So we can stick with that generic one. And you can use the same render controller across multiple entities. It doesn't have to be named per entity. So that's okay. And then we have geometry starter. Let's change that to geometry dude. And what do you think, Gatlin? Should I change all of the starters to dudes here and then go and fix all the sub files, or should I now edit the geometry? Like,
I would say do them all here because we're here. but then definitely talk about why we're doing it as we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to call our geometry dude for our model. We'll go into Blockbench and make up a new model instead of that car. And so same thing with the texture. We'll have to create a texture, and we'll save that as dude as well. Now the materials entity is kind of like a default non-alpha, non-transparency skin or texture. If we do entity underscore alpha test, that will honor the alpha layer. So if you want some transparency, that'll work. So let's leave that the way it is with alpha test. And now we have animations. So we have our animation geometry dude, and let's call it walk. Right. And I'm going to add, so we're going to change this to walk. So we're going to have a walk and an idle animation. Okay, so I'm going to control C, and then I'm going to control V, and I'm going to control V again. I have 2 lines. I don't have any commas yet, so I have to add a comma after the first line so that these 2 are comma separated. Hello. And so I will change the first one to idle. And now, so we have here, again, if you watch the previous stream where we're hacking the resource packs, this file, this entity file, is like our table of contents. This is the thing that contains all of the information that we need to display the entity. All of the client side code is gathered up here, and it's connecting to all these other files that actually have the contents. So our geometry is in a different file, our texture is in a different file, animations are in a different file. All of these things are listed as kind of like a bill, the bill of lading for shipping this pack. So just know that there's this is kind of like our hub that connects everything together. And so we'll say walk. Now, this kind of a rudimentary way of saying, oh, it's always idle, and it will walk when there's a modified move speed, essentially greater than 0. So we'll see how that works as instructions for how to animate. So one of the more recent things is that these scripts folder is kind of like a lightweight animation controller. If we want something more intricate, I did include an animation controller sample that doesn't really connect to anything, but we can use this as a way of understanding how an animation controller works. And so you could see it has an identifier, so controller animation sample. So if we were to go into our dude entity, we would add to the animations that animation controller with no so we would give it a name, and then spell out animation controller sample, and then in the scripts we would run that controller, which is basically telling the game, do what the controller tells you to do. So for now we're kind of doing the animation based on the states in here. So it's a lightweight version of an animation controller. Let's start with this, and we'll get into the more complex animation controllers later. Okay, so now that we've changed this file, let's save it. And now we have to finish connecting the dots. So we're going to go to let's start with the model. We've starter.json. I'm going to rename it to dude.
So which part of the table of contents is looking at this spot?
This is the geometry. Good question. So this is the geometry.
Okay.
Geometry is another word for the model. And this is what we'll be using Blockbench for. So I am going to go into that. And for starters, just to make things easier, I'll change this to dude as well. And save it. And before we go any further, I'm going to go into the textures. So remember in this file, we have the texture, which is, oh, can I? Oh. I was trying to pull up my pencil tool in my Zoom.
You can, but it's an Inception thing with the buttons. I've tried it.
Failure.
Oh, we got a countdown. Oh, now it's back. All right.
Anyway, so the geometry is looking for dude, and the texture is looking for, this is a path, right? The textures folder, the entity folder, and then the file dude.png. We don't put the .png there. It kind of knows that's what it's looking for. So we have the models entity folder here, dude.json. If I click on that, geometry.dude, this identifier, like I said earlier, like some of these identifiers are more important than the file names. So in this scenario, file name is irrelevant. We're not connecting to the file name. We're using the identifier is how we're linking those two up. However, the texture does use the file name. So in this texture, we'll hit F2 and we'll change that to dude to make sure it picks up this. Don't mind me. Okay. So that's changed to dude. So let's go into Blockbench, and we can say open model, and we can go into our development resource pack. Okay, so I go here, development resource pack, template resource, models, entity, dude.json. And there we go. It pulled in dude.png already because it's super smart. And you can see these are all of our blocks. So this is a pretty detailed model. So I hate to do this on this beautiful model, but we can select, oof.
You monster.
So we have let's say we have our base. Now let's create a model. If you're not familiar with Blockbench, I'm not going to really cover how to use it per se. There are some other videos out there on that. I've done some videos that are quite outdated, which is why I'm doing this live stream. And then also Arts by Kev. He's doing a great series of how to use Blockbench. So check out Arts by Kev on YouTube for Minecraft tutorials as well. Doing awesome work. So what we'll do is create a quick model. Quick model. Is there such a thing? Do I like this pressure? So I create a cube for call it leg 1, and then we'll create a cube, call it leg 2. Okay, and so I will. So the front is the north side. So so one of my tutorials I did a helicopter. I turned one of the creeper into a helicopter, and when I was done with the tutorial, the helicopter was going backwards, and I'm like, oh no, the whole thing I did it facing the wrong way, and so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna kind of edit that part out and see who notices it. And no one's like, I was waiting for class to be like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Cleverlike, you messed up, but nobody called me out on it. And so if you did notice it, good for you. And thank you for not, publicly embarrassing me. Appreciate that. Okay. So I think I might center these legs a little bit. I'm going to go to the move tool. Whoa. And do that. Okay. So you could see in our texture, we have like all of this previous stuff. And this is like a 512 by 512 pixel resolution. So we have a lot of space that we can work with. We can also use a smaller image. One trick in Blockbench, if we go to the eraser.
So we just went into the paint. It's kind of covered up by the logo up there, just so you know where we were up there in the top right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so up here, that's interesting. So there's animate this time. Yesterday I was doing the stream and I'm like, that there was no animate folder or animate tab. It was called preview. And so I'm like, oh no, where's animate? And I got into a 10-minute thing. And then I'm like, I clicked on preview and there was the timeline. I'm like, oh, it's called preview. Why? So at least now I'm just further confused. But yeah, anyway, thanks for pointing that out. I did click on the paint tab. The three main components are the editing, where you're manipulating the blocks and developing the shape of the model, and then paint, which is the texture, and then animate is going to be creating the animations. And all these files are going to branch into different folders. The model is going into the geometry, the paint is going to be our PNG texture, and then animate is going to be our animations. So we're going to be able to branch all this data out into their places that they belong. So if I go into paint and then say eraser, let's see if this works. 5. Yeah. I could make it bigger. I can erase the original. I'm trying to avoid using Photoshop. If you're familiar with Photoshop, that's a great, or GIMP. You like to use a graphics program. That's a decent way to do something like this. Wow. All right. Good enough. So we have these clear legs, stylishly clear legs. If I click on this here, wow. I wonder if I can. I don't want to mess with the size of this right now. So I can, in the paint tool, I can go ahead and click on paint. And if I want to make the legs green, green froggy legs, and then paint. Oh, that's cool. That's happening because our UV mappings are mapping to the same exact spot. So it's not like I don't have mirroring turned on or anything like that. It's actually both of these cubes are sharing the same exact texture location. So that's okay. I'm going to finish filling this one in. Make sure to get all the sides. So when you're working in 3D, you have to make sure to move things around. You can't just edit things in one look. And sometimes you have to hide different components. So if you hide one, you could reveal an empty spot that you couldn't see because they were covering each other up. So now what I'm going to do is over here, I did a terrible job of erasing. Look at that. Man, I would be very frustrated with myself right now. But wow, look at that. Okay, just cleaning up. Okay, there's our little teeny leg. So what we're going to do is super important thing before I go any further. Super important thing is to not texture while you're modeling. You want to do all of your modeling first, and then you want to texture, because the problem is, watch this. If I go into edit, I'm like, oh, these legs are awfully short. I need them to be a little bit bigger. Bloop. Bloop. Uh-oh. Now I changed my texture mapping. Everything's screwed up. Terrible. So what we're going to do, I'm going to click on delete to delete this texture. And when you have no texture in Blockbench, it gives you some default visibility on your shapes, so they're not all transparent. That's good. I like that. So let's keep that on, and I'll show you how we can create a new template texture when we're done. All right, so let's create a body. So I'm going to click on the base and then click Add Group, and you'll see it should add it in the hierarchy so that it's inside the base. And we'll call this body. And we'll add a bone to that. And we're going to move this up. And I don't have a plan here. So this is like a peek into my mind. Sad world. Okay. There we go. That seems pretty weird. Love it. And
the artist in me is kind of cringing.
What's that?
So the artist in me is kind of cringing.
Yeah. Sorry, dude. It's terrible, but it's gonna be brilliant. I just know it. Okay, we call that the body. I wonder if that should just be it. That's the actual head. There you go. That's cool. Let's do that. Now, a couple of details I'm going to make sure I do properly is I'm going to go to my pivot tool. And you can see right now the pivot point is set to the bottom. That means when this character walks, it's going to be anchored to the bottom. And so the legs are going to flip back and forth, which is going to look like it's kicking the head. So what we're going to do instead is kind of anchor the leg up here by the head. We'll do that for both of them. This one is a little off to the side, so we'll just move that over and scoosh it up. And again, look at it from different angles to make sure you have good positioning. And lastly, we're going to take the head. Oh, well, let's see that. Yeah, I'm clicking on I clicked on the cube, but I want to click on the actual leg bone. Make sure that's selected. Do the same thing. Because we'll be animating the bones, not the cubes.
Right. Yeah, the animation always happens at the bone level.
Yes. So that's a good catch to click on the actual folder, not the cubes. And same with the head. So now the head, same deal. If the head looks down and it's anchored all the way down at the feet, it's going to swing back and forth when it looks down instead of we just want it to kind of rotate and pivot on that point. So we're going to bring this up. So the head will pivot right there on the legs. So it should be kind of stuck together. And we'll see that when we get to the animation tab. And so now we're going to create texture. We call this dude. Build the template. I'm going to not compress the template. I'll keep the power of 2. Multi-texture occupancy, I'm going to turn that off for right now. So what about making a hammerhead entity? When it attacks, it will hit his head at the... Okay, thank you. All right. So Turgay has an idea like this looks like a hammer. So maybe we could make it have like some sort of hammer attack animation. So that's actually a cool idea. I like that. So keep multi-tenor accuracy. Keep the background by default. And now what we have is a template. And look over here on the left-hand side. It's a nice, clean template. Everything's organized. The tops are this lighter white color. The right, or actually this is the front is blue, left is red, right is green, back is yellow, bottom is gray. Okay. Now, what I like to do when I'm texturing things is kind of do some block fills. So we're going to go into our model And so this was so we're going to make this a hammer, I guess. We'll make this like a hammer with a weird face. And I probably would have done a better job with the model. It's not too late. I mean, maybe it's a little too late, but let's change the head to go back to edit, because we're changing the model, and I want to add a new cube with the head selected, and there's my new cube. So if I can add that here and just, oh yeah, this will be cool. I'll show you. So I made it one bigger, so it's one bigger on either side, but it's kind of offset. So that's the scale and the way it's snapping. So what I can do is I can click on this one, and if you look at the position, if I move the X position, it's actually moving it left to right, and I'm looking at it from the left side right now. So if I move the Y, it's going to move it up and down. So that moved it down. And so if I move it 11.5, and then this one is -3 to -4. So if I do -3.5, because it's in between -3 and -4, it now has kind of like a little extra hammer surface. And the entity is going to attack in front of us. So do you think I should rotate the hammer so that the head is facing? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should.
I think so. And we'll put the face. We'll put the face on the flat end. So I'm going to click on this cube and this cube. This is interesting too, because what you would do normally here is you could change the dimension. So I'll scale it like in a different direction, and that would change the way the model textures, because you're changing the north, south, east, and west faces. But we haven't created our texture yet, so we're going to go ahead and scale it. So here, like, I don't know, Gatlin, if there's a way to explain, but like the let's see here. Rotating it kind of creates a rotation inside of a rotation. Like I like to avoid any early forced rotation if you don't have to. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Is there a better way to explain that?
Yeah, in Blockbench, if you can scale it and keep everything facing the same direction, it's more effective. Some applications you don't really have to worry about that. Although, and the reason behind that, just to kind of go down that rabbit hole, is that you can freeze the transformations on an object and set them all back down to zeros, where it's in Blockbench. I haven't found that feature yet. If it does exist, I haven't seen it yet.
Which thing?
So being able to like freeze the transformations on objects.
Oh.
But it doesn't seem to have that. So
what I am actually doing, rather than taking what I had and just kind of scaling it, like rotating it around, I'm actually redesigning it. And it looks like maybe it's a little too...
And Turgay's saying if you rotate it, you can kind of break the pivot point, and that's also kind of a thing. One of the things I found within Blockbench is that after I kind of move things around, whether it's scale or rotation, I go back and check that pivot point and just make sure that it's right where I want it. And if we can keep them all facing the same direction, that helps considerably.
Yeah, that's cool. And we could add if you wanted to do like a claw hammer, we could add some extra blocks and make a claw coming out the back there, so it looks even more like a hammer, which I really want to do, but we'll hold out on that. So let's go, and now I'm going to paint, and I'm going to create a texture. We'll call it Dude. We didn't know it was going to be a hammer, thanks to the miracle of the internet and science. We now know what it is. I'm not going to compress the template. I like to not compress it because I want to have extra size in case I do need to change something later. Like if I did want to add those claws, I could have a little empty, more likely to have empty space in my texture for that. That's why I do that. 16 by 16, let's go for it, confirm. There we go. There's the hammer. Okay, so we go to paint. Just to kind of move fairly quickly here, I'm going to go to paint bucket. I'm going to change the fill mode to the entire cube. And I'm going to pick a color, kind of brownish. And when I click on the cube, I get every side becomes the brown color. And let's pick a gray for this part, and maybe a lighter gray for the head. And then and then we could do back to the brush, where we could be like, and what do we think there?
You can move them eyes up.
Yeah. Oops. All right. Not the best, but it'll work.
Ship it.
Yep. Maybe, all right. We could do something like this. Terrible. All right. So we have the hammer. Now let's see if we can get this thing to show up in our world. So let's do file. And I like to kind of break them out piece by piece. So I'm going to say export the Bedrock geometry. And I'm going to export it right into the development pack that we have. So com.mojang, development, resource packs, template, models, dude. Do you want to replace it? Yes. Okay. Now we're going to save the texture as well. So I'm going to just do a save as to make sure it's going to the right place. So I right click and do save as, and then resource packs, template. Remember, development resource packs. And then textures, entity, dude.json, gonzo. And that'll change the size of the file too. You see here, it gave us a 64 by 64. We have some nice empty space to add extra stuff. And it's smaller than that 512 by 512. So it'll be a smaller file size as well. So did we, so let's go to now animate. Right. And so we can add here animation dude idle. I think it's animation. Well, let's leave this default here. So animation dude idle, play once. We can do looping. And I think I'm going to leave it at that for right now. And then in this, yes, it's your invention, Turgay. So thank you. We'll see if we can get this hammer smacking people. Okay, so now we need to do a super basic walk cycle here, right? So we're going to, first of all, I'm going to click on the leg 1, and I'm going to click on leg 2, and you see they show up here. So actually, no, this is the idle. So I'm going to leave those there. I'm going to click on the head. There's the head. And so one of the things we can do is we can keyframe the center, and then we can have it kind of look. So I'm going to move the timeline along a little bit, and I'm going to move the head on this rotation. So let's just say the hammer is kind of patrolling for somebody. And then what you can do here is you should be able to copy this keyframe and then go here and paste it. So it'll kind of put you back to where it started. So the loop is going to be a nice and clean loop. So let's see what happens. Yeah. So it's awful, but but it's ours. But it's ours. I would probably make the rotation a little bit smaller, so it doesn't look as surveillance camera-ish. Oh gosh. Okay. All right, I'm screwing things up here. Okay, so zing, screwed it up. You can go here off to the side and change that to 12. And now click. Okay, that's awful, but I love it. Okay, so we're gonna leave that as idle, and then one of the things we can do now is we can do the walk. So we're going to add this. We're going to say walk. Same deal with looping, and then confirm. And so we have to bring in the legs. Now we have the walk highlighted on the left, and then we can click on leg 1 and click on leg 2, and we'll keyframe. We'll do the same thing with the rotation of both and see if we did our pivot points properly. So leg 2, let's go ahead and scooch that up a little. And then leg 1, scooch that back a little. This is going to be so big. Arts by Kev does a really great walk cycle tutorial. This is not that tutorial. This is not that tutorial. We're already pushing our time, but yeah, I think let's give ourselves a little more time here. Are you okay on time, Gatlin, or do you have to bail?
We can do it. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to get through this. So I'm going to move this other leg here, and this leg will move back, and then we'll do a similar thing where I think we can actually drag and drop or drag to collect keyframes, bring them out here. Can you make eyes blink in a texture? Yeah, so the changing textures is a render controller thing, swapping textures, but I think you can create like a texture atlas that animates as well. Definitely won't be able to cover that in this one. Okay. Good enough. Good enough. Okay, so we have our 2 different animations. So if we go to animation, save all animations, and I'm going to go to the com.mojang resource pack folder, template, animations. I'm going to say dude.animation. Putting it into a different file just to see what's going on. Okay, so now I'm going back to Visual Studio Code. You see here our texture is showing up. That's cool. Our model, what did we just do? Animations. Let's take a quick look at dude. So we have animation dude idle. Remember, this is our identifier. This is important. So animation dude idle, animation dude walk, and it has all the different the timeline. Go back to your entity. Remember and I did this kind of intentionally because we have to make sure that the name of the animation in the animation folder is listed here on the bill of lading for the entity. So I'm actually going to remove the word geometry. I think that's a little excessive. So animation dude idle and animation dude walk. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back to dude, animation dude idle, animation dude walk. All right, I'm going to delete the starter one. Now, no, I won't. Actually, I'll leave it just so we have it as a reference point. So last thing to point out, and to look at when we go to our entity, the entity is just to explain here. So idle is kind of like, I'm going to know the idle animation as idle. I'm going to know the walk animation as walk. So if I want those animations to run, I no longer have to call them by their formal names. I call them by the short names that I've defined here. So that's where you see, like in scripts, when we're trying to tell what animations to run, we're saying run the idle animation, which is connected to this actually defined one. Run the walk animation, which is defined to this one. So I think this entity might still be rideable.
I was thinking about that.
Which could be, I was just thinking like if we should add a random stroll to it so it walks, but I'm curious to see what happens when we hop on it. Did we cover everything? We've got our generic render controller, which we don't have to mess around with.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it's just kind of picking all the defaults. Controller render generic is connected here. Controller render generic. Okay, I think we're gonna go into our world.
Yeah, make sure you save all of those files before.
Yeah, and the quick way to tell is if they have a white circle.
Yeah,
it is a weird situation here. Why are you not?
Yeah, you got the extra. Strange.
Oh, yeah, maybe that was like the welcome window or something like that. But you would see, like if I make a change, I hit space on here, you see this white dot. That means you have an unsaved change. So make sure there's no white dots in your files in Visual Studio Code. Okay, summon, dude. Oh, that's good. Hey, oh, it's a baby. And look, it's idling. Right click. We're riding it. Okay, it doesn't animate when we. Oh yeah, it is animating.
Yeah.
Our seat's a little off, and our health is a little crazy. But you can see because it's moving, it's running the movement animation, and when it stops, it runs the idle animation. He is looking around. This is silly. But we did it. We created a custom entity. That was our goal. Did we just accomplish that?
You might say we nailed it. Oh.
You're a genius. You're a genius. So that was great. Scale is important, right? So that is a large shadow. So okay, so good. Throw some questions if you're still with us and kind of following along or have questions. So my observation is, darn, it's small. And one of the things you could do in Blockbench that's helpful, edit, if you go into the preferences, settings, and the grid, if you put large box on, I think that's the one. This is cool. It gives you a better sense of the size, you know, because a 1x1 block is like a grass block. It's just a cube. So we've made this barely bigger than a block in Minecraft. So we didn't have a good sense of scale. Also, we didn't know it was going to be a hammer until it was, you know, until it was born into the world. So having a better plan and scaling appropriately is helpful. So keep that in mind. If you do need to tweak some things, let's go and make a change real quick. So we're going to go into the behavior pack. In the behavior pack lives the in the entities for dude in our behavior pack, we have scale. So if I want to make it 2 times bigger, I can change the scale of the entity. Now, if of course, we have scale in here in our template, but if it doesn't exist, we go grab it and bring it in. And so we have a collision box. That's where that kind of dictates the shadow. So let's make the collision box width of 0.5 and a height of 2. And see if our shadow is a little better. I also want to change the health. The other thing we can do is there's a behavior called random stroll. So if you think of like, I want it to walk around like a pig does or like a cow does, that if you look at the actual cow and those other entities, they have a thing called random stroll. And again, this doesn't have our sample code. So what we'll do, what's up, Cars Man? Hey, the Snickeries. The Snazcaries. Okay, this is looking very great. Always do mistakes in the entity.json resource when adding new entities. Spend hours to get it done. Yeah, I agree. Like it's hard to get those details right, and sometimes it's also difficult to get the right version numbers because sometimes you'll get like you'll see the shadow, but you won't see the entity, and you'll be like, oh, I'm so close. And a lot of times, the version numbers could be an issue in like your render controller and stuff like that. So I'm going into here and I'm going to look at, let's say I look at cow. And I'll make this bigger. And I'll do a Control F to find. And I'll look at Stroll. And you can see here the cow has a random stroll as a priority 6 with a speed multiplier of 0.8. So it actually, when it's strolling around, it's kind of slower speed as a multiplier. So we can copy that section, go into our hammer, paste that in, and I could change, you could change the multiplier. Let's change to 1.2, make it a little faster. And you could change the priority. It's kind of like the priority is like what it sees as its priority. So like if an entity goes in water, you want floating to be a high priority instead of strolling around because you don't want it to drown if it's in the water. So you might make floating top priority, and then like if it's not in the water, floating will be bypassed and it'll pick the other things. But maybe you can make it a little bit slower. Okay, you want me to make it a little bit slower? Okay. Give it some swagger. We can do 0.6. Okay, save. So go back to our world. We have to always save and quit. So we have to get out of the world and go back in. And worst case scenario, if you're really sure you got it right, close the game and reopen the game. But in this case, with the development behavior packs, it should reload everything from scratch. Hey, look at that. And there it goes. It's walking around. Okay. That's cool. And the shadows are annoying on entities. It's just kind of the way it is. You can do work to get rid of them, but it's a little bit risky. It's a little bit risky of a thing to mess around with. So you might have to just embrace shadows in general. I think we'll do our next stream. I'm thinking I love the hammer attack. So I think we're going to add like a hammer attack, which is great because it's a behavior. It's going to target the player. Like, so if I do game mode 0, right now I'm in survival mode. The hammer doesn't see me as an enemy. It doesn't target me. Not even looking at me as like there's not even a look at player behavior. So there's lots of things we can tweak there. If you're watching this video and you got to hear this and you've stuck around with us to get this far, go ahead and post some comments on what you want to see, and we'll try to integrate that into the process. But I'm feeling pretty good about this. Anybody, any last questions? Gatlin, what is your thoughts? You got anything to add on that?
Well, I like the idea of doing the attack for sure, but I'm also like, let's put some particles in there. Because I'm a particle guy. I love that stuff.
You do love the particles and the sounds.
Oh, and the audio, yes, and the audio.
Right. So these are the things we still have to get to. We have to get to adding particle effects. Mm-hmm. We have to get to Mama Bell. It's okay. I was curious about your tweet because I thought you're 1 hour behind us, and you must be a night owl like myself. But yeah, you can watch the recording. We had some fun. This is what we created. It was in the middle of the night. I saw it. Yeah, I knew it had to be. Of course, my tweet was at like 2:00 in the morning, and then you came up later at probably similar time. But we ended up creating this hammer named Dude. Surveils the area. Yeah, so that's kind of so what we're talking about, what we're going to do next in that. So anyway, thanks for at least coming in and catching us. But yeah, so we're going to where was I?
Well, we've got to vote for the audio. So
audio,
yep.
particles,
attack
behaviors,
yep.
Things like changing textures, more. So we can do an attack animation. So we do another animation. What else is useful? Oh, the other thing that I like is kind of interact commands. Like if we right click on this thing or punch it, we can have it do different things. Like one thing I like is, if let's say this was a turret, you can right click on it and it'll go away and give you a spawn egg of itself, and you could drop it somewhere else. So if you're playing a game and want to have replaceable turrets that you can pick up, you can kind of program the interact command.
Oh, and loot tables too.
Yeah, and the loot tables together. So it's kind of it's a pretty cool combo. So there's lots of creative stuff that we can do and add on. So this is kind of where we'll take it from here. The hammer will be, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Isn't that right?
Pretty much. And we got a vote here too for some animated textures. So through the texture changing thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I know the people to call for that.
True story.
You can see my texturing skills. I have to really push myself to create something decent. New items for loot tables. Okay. Cool. All right. This has been super awesome. Thank you guys and gals and everybody for joining us. I hope this has been helpful to you. Definitely tweet us if you are creating your own custom entity and making some progress. Share that on Twitter and all that good stuff. And, stay tuned. Be waiting for the next stream. I also really want to learn how to add animated textures. Okay, gotcha. Seeing the player get angry. Cool. All right. Well, I guess we have to close. This has been a good stream. Thank everyone for joining us. Gatlin, thanks for being here, buddy.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk to everyone soon. See you.
All right. Later, y'all.